Okay, for the first step, we have a plastic mask, we have some wood glue and water, we have cheesecloth, and we have our paintbrush. Just a quick close-up of a piece of cheesecloth. This kind of cheesecloth has a fairly loose weave, as you can see, and when I cut the pieces, they end up being about 1 to 2 inches square or rectangular. It doesn't really matter as long as I've got a piece that's big enough to overlap the other pieces of cheesecloth. I do have what I'm calling a double layer here. As you can see, I can start peeling those 2 separate layers apart, and that double layer is what I build my masks out of. On your mask, you may not have a black line, but you're going to notice that I'm going to cover part of it with cheesecloth and leave part of it off. That's because our mask is going to be a half mask with our mouths open. The next step is I'm going to mix some water into the wood glue. And right now the wood glue is pretty thick. You can see that here. I'm going to try to thin it down with a tiny bit of water in there, and I'll mix it all around, making it a little bit soupier. And there's no exact science to this, but as long as when you dip the brush in, it kind of runs a bit, I'll add a tiny bit more. Give it a little mix. The more water, the longer it's going to take to dry, but it should be pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, that's okay. So the way I like to start is I like to get a little bit of glue down on the mask. And this is just going to give a little something for the cheesecloth to stick to. I'm going to start building a little bit of glue bigger than what I'm putting down. I lay down some cheesecloth and there's glue under it, and I'm going to glue over top of it. And the best way to do it is to kind of start from the middle and work your way out so that the piece does not get all bunched up. So I'm starting from the middle of the piece and working out to the edge of it. From the middle of the piece, working out. If it covers the eye, that's perfectly okay. Don't let it go underneath the plastic, but let it cover and that'll be fine. I'll take another piece and I'll start laying it on in a different direction here. And if I find it's moving around too much, I can butter the mask with a little bit of glue first and just keep working like this. Working from the middle of the piece to the outside each time. And I can lay more glue, making sure, and I know I'm doing this well, if I look at the fibers and I see that everything is a nice bright yellow and I don't see any white fibers poking through or showing through. I'm going to add another little piece up here. I'm going to get a little glue down on this surface first, and I'm going to keep working away. The glue holds it down, and I can just keep lightly using the brush. If I push too hard, I'm going to move that cheesecloth all around. So I'll just keep buttering it down. Nice gentle strokes with the brush. Add a little more glue to stick the next bit down. And I keep going from the middle to the outside, middle to the outside. I see some white fibers there. I want to make sure that they are saturated with the glue. If I see a gap like right there between these 2 pieces of cheesecloth, I might just throw another down. We don't want to put too many layers down, because if we do, our mask is just going to get thicker and heavier. And this is just our first step. We will be adding more layers of both cheesecloth, tissue paper, foil, and a few other things as we go along. So I just keep picking out bits and pieces here and working my way along. If I don't get all the glue on the bits on the eye, that's not going to be a worry. I can deal with that in the next step, and I can either cover the eye completely or just a little bit It'll all work out. We can make a lot of mistakes as we go along, and our masks will still turn out pretty amazing. I am going to start going down over the nose. We're actually going to end up cutting a lot of this away when we fit the mask to your face, but for now, it's better to have a little bit extra than not enough. You can cover the nostrils because we're actually going to take away a lot of that material to allow you to be able to breathe. But for now, we build it up only to take it away a little later. And I'm just jumping around to different spots on the mask. Nice gentle touch with the brush so I'm not pulling the cheesecloth all over the place, because watch what happens if I put this cheesecloth down and I'm too hard with the brush. I'm just gumming it all up and folding it all over, and I'm ending up with a piece that really can't be used. Be careful when you're working with the cheesecloth that you don't throw a bad piece into your pile of good cheesecloth, because it'll all end up as a hard bunch that we have to throw away. Put that over there. I'm going to move this off a bit and just keep working. Put a little glue down and put that piece right there. I can overlap this little line I've drawn. That's perfectly okay, because again, this is just an area that's going to get cut away. But I don't know how much I'm cutting away yet, so I'll make it a little bit bigger than I need to. And as you start getting some cheesecloth and glue down, it becomes a little easier to get the next piece because it has something to stick to. When I get to the edge of my mask, it's perfectly okay to let the cheesecloth hang over a bit. Do not tuck it underneath the mask. That's only going to make it really difficult to take off of the plastic mask when it dries. But you can let those edges hang over, and those edges can still be a little bit white and fluffy. But make sure that anything that's touching the mask is really, really well saturated with that glue. As you can see, my mask looks wet, but it's not a runny mess. And I'll just keep working away here, adding more pieces as I go. Always overlapping about a 1/4 inch, just to make sure that each new piece is well secured to the piece that was there before. Some pieces are long and I can just fit them in wherever it makes sense. And again, at the edge of the mask here, I can let that just hang over the side. That's not going to matter because it'll all get cut off when I get to the next step. But right here, I'm adding a bit more and a bit more glue. The bit that hangs over, just let it hang over. Do not fold it under the mask. It's going to be really hard to get off of the mask that way. And if it doesn't go quite to the edge, that's not going to be a problem either. To fit your face, we're probably going to cut away more than is here anyway. Now right here is where the mask would normally have its string. I do want to make sure that I have some cheesecloth fabric around this spot because we're probably going to end up somewhere around this side with the string for our mask as well. Again, a little bit of white fabric overhanging is okay. If I have little bits coming up like this, I want to make sure that I pat them down with the paintbrush to try to make the surface of my mask as smooth as possible. And it's looking like our first step is pretty much done. If I turn the mask around and look, I don't see any big gaps. I see a little bit of fiber here that was left over on the edge. I'm actually gonna crinkle that up there so that it's gonna be easier to cut off next day when I take this off the mask. Some white fibers hanging off there are fine. Some white fibers hanging off there. The nose is covered. The eyes are almost covered. I see a bit coming off here, so I'm going to pat that down and make sure there's no big fibers sticking up. And I think this is ready to sit and dry. It should take about a day to dry up. I should be able to come back tomorrow and start on the next step. Just a reminder that when you're finished working for the day, don't forget to cover up your glue in an airtight container. And don't forget to wash your brushes out really well because there is a lot of glue in them right now. And make sure you put your extra cheesecloth away so that it's not going to get in the wet glue and end up being an unusable mess for next day.